The City of Bowie regular city council meeting to order for Monday, August 7, 2023. It is now 8:02 p.m. And I need to change that date to August the 14th. At this time, I'd like everyone to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam City Clerk, for the record, could you confirm we have a quorum?
Yes, Mayor, we do have a quorum this evening. In room 243, we have Councilmember Stebb, Mayor Adams, Truesdale, and Councilmember Hawkins. And via Teams, virtually, we have Councilmember Wolfley.
At this time, I will ask if there are any agenda additions, deletions, or amendments. Come on up, council members. Hearing none, we will proceed to citizen participation. Do we have any signed up?
Comments via email, which were forwarded to council for the record. They'll be made part of it, and I have one person for this evening.
B. Scott? Hey, please come on up. I don't know how we're gonna do the speaking.
Good evening.
Good evening.
To all of our members of the City of Bowie Council and all constituents here, thank you for allowing me to be with you this evening. This evening, I stand before you as a National Service Member, AmeriCorps Vista alumni under CNCS, a City of Bowie servant member, a community ambassador, and public service member concerned about the state of Bowie residents and their driving suitability. It is an unfortunate yet sad precedent that as a millennial, I must call to your attention the hazardous road conditions to which I and countless others have been a victim of and or witnessed various dangerous situations occur in and around the city of Bowie. But first, let me address something else that is just as important to the matter that will be addressed here this evening, and I will try to make this quick. I understand full well what our law enforcement officers face, and I'm saying this from an unbiased standpoint because many know that I'm very connected to the Bowie Police Department. And we are also aware of how their hands have been tied in answering certain circumstances to which drivers have found themselves. I also understand that the new civil rights movement has made it that much more difficult for our officers to respond, and in essence, the new movement has allowed, in my personal and professional opinion, criminals to run amok in our fair city, and this cannot be allowed to stand. Our officers from every level, from the top down, deserve the utmost respect, not just amongst themselves within the department, but also from the public, which they sacrifice for in service daily. Officers should not be worried, nor should they ever have to be contend with the fact that they will not please everyone by doing the job the way they are expected to perform. Nor should they contend with ruthless, unwarranted complaints from members of the public, which serve nothing of a purpose and cause irreparable damage and harm to that officer, their reputation, and potentially their career. I make this statement clearly as a result of some of the social media activity I have witnessed on Nextdoor. more than a year ago, and even as recent as earlier this year, at least within the first quarter of the year. Our officers are here to do a job, and they cannot do it alone. They need us, and we need them. Members of the public must be truthful and upright when speaking of our law enforcement officers and not lie to have their way. I say this because, as I mentioned earlier, I've witnessed some things happen that should not have in other areas of the country and even in the state of Maryland. Maybe not Bowie, but in Maryland. I am simply appealing to the masses regarding the civility to which cannot be addressed on social media platforms wherein persons may be flagged or reported for speaking the truth by someone who is guilty of despicable acts and a lack of civility. We need to show some respect to one another and especially our officers. Antagonizing people who serve us will eventually burn them out and they will walk away. Who will we call then? I'm going to skip a part and then I'm going to bring to your attention some driving issues. It is of urgency that I provide you with just 2 examples in quick form. Mitchellville Road has a huge problem with drivers obeying lane changes as well as seriously dangerous aggressive driving. On Friday, July 21st in the 4 o'clock hour, I was driving down Mitchellville Road and came to a complete stop when a late model edition Mercedes-Benz midsize black SUV pulled onto my immediate right. Unfortunately, when you drive, you do not just drive for yourself, you drive for everyone around you. I knew what the driver was about to do because he was in a turning lane and he had not turned. And in fact, on my way here, I witnessed somebody do the same exact thing to other cars in the second lane. Instead of the car turning onto Fred Robinson Way, that vehicle nearly ran me off the road, forcing me out of my lane. To make matters worse, they continued to drive erratically throughout Mitchellville Road, even until they crossed over onto Church Road when they made their way down Mount Oak Road. I will not call out the tag, but I did get that tag and have a very good description. The same exact instance happened at the Costco, which everybody goes to. That is on the fringes of the city of Bowie, which is why I bring it up. Those are just 2 incidents. But let me also mention to you, as I was just discussing with another officer, I have witnessed countless other regards dealing with the speed limit, people tailing another person too close with the intent of hitting that person from behind because they are following the speed limit, Racetrack Road, Old Chapel Road, Stony Brook Road, Ken Hill. I can go on, but I can name some very tough hotspots for you within the city of Bowie dealing with this. Even our school buses witnessed a road rage incident between a car and a school bus, where the car got mad at the school bus and overtook the bus. The bus overtook the car. This is going on in my subdivision in Saddlebrook West where I live. And I live on River Park Road. Eventually, that car won, and when that car got around the bus again, the bus tried to hit the car from behind. I'm standing on the porch witnessing this. Another person is standing on the sidewalk, and we're looking at each other going, did we just see that? Yeah, we did. That's not right. If it's not road rage, it's running stop signs, it's running red lights, and I can't count how many times I've almost been hit. The last incident I will bring to your attention proves exactly how dangerous this is. On Monday, June 26th, I was just 2 hours home from the ER, in which I had a very bad migraine. And in that instance, a friend had advised that I leave the brand new car that I had just purchased at the house so that I didn't crash it. Just 2 hours home, the entire house is in an uproar, and I cannot figure out why. I leave, and they're like, you're there, thank God. And I'm like, what's going on? I go out, my brand new car is done. She did not have 8,000 miles on her, 7,506 miles to be exact. $476.23 a month note jumped to $600. The same exact car sits on your lot, and now I'm paying $600 for it. We're not going to even get into the insurance. I'm now on a hook for $2,700 that I don't have. I'll have to cut out other bills in order to cover what the gap insurance refused to pick up. That's just one instance of danger and how I could have been killed. The only remedy I have for the city of Bowie, and I don't know what the city council can do, or anybody in that matter, more cameras, come up with a plan to protect our officers that allows them to do their job without frivolous complaints from people who lie. I do not play about the city of Bowie police officers. I do not. I don't want to see this happen to any of them. So if I'm seeing it happen around the state, it's not going to be long before I see it happen here. Speed bumps. I know Saddlebrook West already did the little community survey, but can we please, 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 please have speed bumps? Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. We will now move on to presentations. And we have one, the Proclamation P1323, recognizing Random Acts of Kindness Club. It's right here. Do we need to, as a council, approve it? Yeah. Would you make a motion, please? Just, Councilman Barton.
Yes. I'd like to make a motion for proclamation, which number was that, Mr. Mayor? P1323. P1323, Random Acts of Kindness. I'd like to make a motion for approval and acceptance.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I do not have your job, Mr. Mayor. I do not. Okay, I do not, Mr. Mayor.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thank you,
Go right
Mr. Mayor.
ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to, do I stand or I don't know?
Just
Okay.
saying or reading.
I wanted to invite up to the podium, Molly and the gentleman with Molly, and I'd like to explain how I met them and what their organization is about. Now, I'm going to read this first. The city of Bowie, Maryland, a proclamation of the City Council of Bowie, Maryland, recognizes Random Acts of Kindness Club, whereas Random Acts of Kindness Club inspire and empower individuals to perform random acts of kindness. Whereas through these acts of kindness, they foster a ripple effect of goodness in our community that transforms lives and uplifts spirits. And whereas they believe that kindness has the power to heal wounds, bridge divides, and brighten even the darkest days, whereas the club fosters an exclusive and supportive environment welcoming individuals from all walks of life who share a common passion for making a difference. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Bowie hereby recognizes Random Acts of Kindness Club's vision of a world where acts of kindness are woven into the fabric of society, fostering a brighter and more humanist future for all. By embodying the spirit of kindness, empathy, and intrusion, we hope to inspire positive change that ripples beyond our club, creating a lasting impact on the world. Presented by the City Council of Bowie, Maryland, at the regular meeting on the 14th day of August 2023, signed by Mayor Timothy J. Adams, City Clerk Wilder Hernandez. I'd like to say how I met Molly and the gentleman. They were in my neighborhood performing random acts of kindness, and we just bumped into each other talking. They were out that day working and talking with many of our neighbors about getting their yards and things in order, cleaning their yards up, getting rid of some of the waste, planting some nice flowers, and they actually provided gloves, buckets, flower seeds, and other things to residents, all at no cost, while talking to them and just meeting with a number of our seniors. And I saw them in the community, and I approached them and just had a conversation. And I love what they were doing. And I want first to present you with this proclamation, and I do have 2 gift cards from local shops, Walmart and Target, that have come to want to provide random acts of kindness. I was supposed to pick them up prior to coming here, but it was really late. So, but Molly, I'll get them over to you. I will get them over to you, and to help you continue your vision and what you're doing and the great things that you're doing here. You're a true example of what neighbors are supposed to do. I love it, and please continue on. I know that you're going to do great things here and continue to do great things here in the city of Bowie. So I want to present this to you and allow you and your group to say a few words to our listening and viewing audience.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Gardner. Yeah, it was serendipitous that we ran into Councilmember Gardner that day. And I just wanted to share briefly how this club came to be. I work at Ardmore Enterprises, which is a nonprofit here in Bowie that supports adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And my role at the organization is to, come over here so everyone can see you. My role is to connect the people that we support with their community in an effort to realize their vocational, educational, leisure, or personal goals. And so what I did, well, let me back up. One thing that the people that we support have taught me is the root of what brings true joy to life. And that is connection, being present, really being in the moment, and giving little bits of joy to others. And so many of the people that we support have these incredible hearts, and they just want to give. And so I thought, well, I need to help connect them with their community in this way. So we thought, well, let's start a club where people, like-minded people, can come together and, shift a little bit of the energy in our wonderful community of Bowie. And especially with, I gotta beat the clock here. I feel like I need to speed up a little bit. So we wanted to gather like-minded people to spread little bits of kindness, especially with everything that's going on in the world. We want to elevate goodness and kindness and connection with our community. So we're on a mission to make that happen and to just share joy with one another. And I just wanted to share a few of the projects that we've done so far. The club is in its infancy. We plan to grow. And so I just wanted to share, you did a wonderful job of sharing our mission and vision. So I just wanted to share, we did adopt a road here in Bowie, thanks to Patrick McCarthy. He's one of our founding members. He's one of our community members here, and he's been an incredible help. So we adopt a road, and that's when we do neighborhood cleanup. We're cleaning up litter and debris, and we did throw in some lovely spring gardening buckets and left them on doorsteps of people in that neighborhood. We also have partnered with the Bowie Senior Center, and we create homemade goods and flower bouquets to give away to the seniors in our community. And we also have decorated cards with inspirational quotes with the intention of giving them to random people or leaving them in little spots for people to find. And we have also made worry stones out of clay. We like doing a lot of arts and crafts stuff, right, Gary? Mm-hmm. And Gary's actually a prayer warrior.
Yes.
He is very strong in his faith, and anytime somebody comes into his space, he loves to pray for them and wish them well.
at the house too. All the guys need prayer over there.
Yeah, yeah. He lives in a house with a couple of other guys.
And the house mothers help us out, and I did plant lots of plants in my room this year
Yeah.
by myself.
And maybe we can give away some of those flowers that you grow.
The little ones.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's just an idea. But so anyway, those are just a few things that we've done, and we're going to continue. We have a lot of ideas that we want to continue to share with our community and just help make things a little bit brighter. So thank you so much again. It was so wonderful. I'm so grateful that we were given this proclamation, and thank you.
And random acts of kindness, thank you so very much. Oh, you can back to school. Right. Look, I'll give it to you.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, thank you. We
I'll
will.
get you some information.
Awesome.
And
Thank
I'll
you.
see to get you those gift cards.
Thank you.
No,
We'll be in
thank
touch.
Well, before you go, I think it's appropriate that we show a little random act of kindness ourselves. Would you please come up and get a couple of gift cards?
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
Please.
You're gonna make me cry.
Can neighbors do with neighbors, great, great thing.
Thank you so much, okay? All right. All right.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Henry. All right. Moving on to the next item, we will now do our city boards and committees. Ms. Julie Gordon was interviewed on June 20th for appointment to the Education Committee. Council concurred to appoint her to the committee as a member for a 2-year term. I will entertain a motion at this time to appoint her.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. Okay, all right. Well, second, there you go.
I don't know if he heard that you had started.
It's okay.
Okay.
That's fine. Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. The council concurred to appoint Ms. Nedra B. Scott to the Board of Elections as a member for a 2-year term. I will open the floor for a motion at this time to appoint her.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye. Aye. Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. We will now go on to the swearing in at this point. Would you please come forward? I'm right here, and if you would, please raise your right hand. I state your name. Do swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland and support the Constitution and laws thereof, and that I will, to the best of my skill and judgment, diligently and faithfully, without partiality or prejudice, execute the regular office of, and state which you're going. Okay. Board of Elections. Okay. According to the Constitution
according to the Constitution
and the laws of this state.
and the laws of this state.
Congratulations. Here you go. Ms. Scott, it's for you. Thank you so very much for being willing to serve your community. Ms. Gordon, thank you so very much for being willing to support. Got it? All right, here you go. Hey, thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We will now move on to council announcements. Do any council members have announcements? I recognize the Mayor Pro Tem.
Hello. Oh, okay, it's working. Thank you. This evening, I was going to add an agenda addition to the agenda, but I decided to go in a different direction. I just wanted to make an announcement that I'm working with staff and our city manager to have a letter sent to Walmart, CVS, Safeway, and Giant, particularly concerning the lights that have been out at CVS on South Crane Highway, the trash that has been in the parking lot, and the upkeep of the stores. And so I'm working with our city staff and our city manager to get a letter out to these facilities and these establishments to ensure that they understand the expectations of the community and understand what's going on. So that's the only announcement I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Councilman Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That's so he can open your mic.
Okay. All right. I'd like to piggyback off of Mayor Pro Tem's comment. You know, actually, the 7-Eleven also at the same shopping center near Walmart. If we could, yes, Collington Station. If we could reach out to them as well. I was there this weekend and I'm seeing diapers and the PPE, the mask. It's just really atrocious. It really is. It shouldn't be in a community such as Bowie. So if we could address that as well. Thank you for bringing it up, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, City Manager.
Go ahead, City Manager.
I've talked to Mayor Pro Tem about this circumstances at 3 and, 4 locations. I talked with our community services director, and we know the managers of these complexes, of these shopping centers. So we have been talking to them today, energizing them to, one, the upkeep of their facilities, their parking lots. You know, we do know why in some cases they have the tractor trailers. It is a practice of Walmart nationwide that they invite tractor trailers and RVs to park in their parking lot, which is, and so with the hope that these people will eventually turn around and go buy things there at Walmart. So, but we're going to talk to them about that at both the Safeway and the town center, and the Walmart on 301, and the CVS, and that's a particular problem if it's unlit and people have to go in there at night. And so we're working. We have been in touch with them already to push this issue. It's my recommendation that we give them 45 days or so to correct these problems. If not, then we should send a letter to the county requesting a health and welfare inspection of the interiors of these facilities, because we've also got some complaints about that. But we're asking them to take a look at their interiors, exteriors, and the condition thereof, and to fix that. Now, we've done that a couple of times already with the Walmart there and the Giant and that big shopping area. And we started it today. So that's my position.
And then I'll speak.
To city manager's point, there were a lot of tractor trailers that were parked in a lot of these parking lots that we started to notice increase over time. So that's what he's referring to in terms of my comments and the conversation that I had with him. Also, there's one more announcement I want to make. There have been a number of different emails that have been sent or concerns raised on Pointer Ridge Shopping Center. I've been in touch with Councilmember Watson's office and working with her to align with DPI to go out to Pointer Ridge Shopping Center. I know a number of the business owners have also voiced complaints and service issues in terms of things that need to be fixed at that shopping center at their different establishments for the buildings and the spaces that they're leasing. So that issue is in motion. She's working on that with the county level because that is county jurisdiction. And we'll follow up with more announcements as we see what develops from that. Thank you.
Okay, if no one else, I'll make my comments at this time. I know that one of the issues we've been having with the change in the weather, as it's getting more severe and other things, a lot of our citizens are suffering through the process of when trees go down in their yards. You know, and as a city, there's nothing we can do about their private property. But one of the things I've done is I've reached out to several insurance brokers to understand what we can do, what people can do with their homeowners insurance, and what's covered, what's not covered, and looking to get them, and I will hold a small forum so that people can understand where their homeowners insurance is, what they can do, as well as reaching out to the county to see what other relief we might be able to get here in the city as well. So I think it's important that we realize that that is a great burden on many of our citizens. And we do have to address it. And we are doing that, and we need to look at where the homeowners' policies are, maybe in advising people on what they can and can't do or should do, and just bringing in some of the agents to share that information, as well as seeing what we can get from our local, from the county, as well as the state on some of these things. Because particularly here in Bowie, we have a lot of older trees, but we love our trees here. And they're beautiful, but we need to make sure that doesn't become a burden for all of our citizens because of the way the weather is changing. So I'd like to make sure everybody understands that'll be forthcoming, talk with some folks, and I look forward to being able to sit down and actually see what we can do to address this issue. Thank you. Any other comments? Go ahead.
I wanted to ask if perhaps, Mr. Mayor, if maybe the council could take up looking at creating a grant program for tree removal for some of our residents that are in a bind. I do know that several other jurisdictions do have tree grant removals in the upwards of like $1,000 per household that will help cover the removal of a tree, uprooting it. So
Yeah, and that's one of the things
with all
that
these storms
we
and
have this
hurricanes
forum
coming
we're
this way.
talking. That's
Yes.
what we're looking at doing as well.
Yes.
I think the first thing we should do is see what aid is possible and available already through the state and the county.
And even federal.
But also making sure people understand that it may be covered in their homeowners insurance.
Absolutely.
And bringing that forward. So I would look at that as a part as we go through that process.
Okay.
A great point, and
Thank you.
that's a part of that as well.
Thank you,
Okay?
Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right, any other comments at this time? Hearing none, we will move on to the city manager's report.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, City Manager.
Okay, the city manager has no report this evening. We have nothing on the consent agenda, so we will now move on to old business. And that is the renaming of Nash Woods Park. And I know the city, we had directed you to get some information on what it would take to do that. I know we also talked about possibly just drafting that letter, but why don't you give feedback so that everyone understands where we are right now.
Mayor, Mr. Minor did the research, and he's going to tell you what he found out.
Good evening, Mr. Minor.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm Joe Minor, the Planning Director, and based on your direction at the July 3rd council meeting, we contacted the Park and Planning Commission to inquire about whether they had a policy regarding naming parks. In fact, they do have an existing policy as well as an update to the policy, which is currently under review. The new policy is actually more restrictive and will not allow park properties to be named after individuals, but that policy is not in effect yet. So we're operating now under the latest 2002 document, which provides for in extraordinary and exemplary request, a park facility may be named in the honor of a particular individual. And the policy we attached to your memo tonight, we do feel that this request would fit in line with that item 5D of the current policy. And so it's really up to council to make the decision. If you wish, a letter would go to the county planning board chairman requesting that they consider naming the Nash Woods Park after Senator Peters.
I think at this point, from what we had last time, that council is in agreement with having staff go forward with that letter. And I think we can concur on that,
Yes, sir.
council?
Yes.
So if we could, staff, would you move forward on drafting that letter and getting it in, please? Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, thank you. All right. We now move on to new business. The city transportation priority list. Staff from the planning department will review the current transportation priority list for state and county facilities serving Bowie. Mr. Minor?
Again, Joe Minert, Planning Director, here to introduce this item. And before I proceed, I'd like to introduce to the council the newest member of our staff, which is Mr. Ridwan Coker. He is a transportation specialist working in our office. Comes to us, graduate of Morgan State University with a transportation systems degree, and is really busy, hit the ground running as soon as he got here. And he's going to make the presentation, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
First and foremost,
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. If you can direct your attention to the screen here. So every year the city prepares letters that go out to the state and county indicating the city's transportation priorities for the upcoming fiscal year. First, it's helpful to explain the stages that a project moves through, starting with project planning, where we define the scope and the limits of the project. Second will be the design and engineering, where the project is designed and engineered in detail. Next, we have right-of-way acquisition, where the agency or administration overseeing the project will acquire the real estate for the right-of-way. And the final stage, which is construction, where the project will be physically constructed. For the city of Bowie, we plan on recommending, with approval from council, the 3 highest transportation priorities for the city of Bowie. Number 1, Maryland 197, which is currently number 6 on the state's transportation list for the county. Next, we have Maryland 450, which was number 8 the previous year, but now is number 9 on the county list. Then we have Church Road, which all funding still remains beyond the 6 years in the county CIP. Moving on to the state consolidated transportation program, the list essentially stays the same from the last year with one new addition. US 301 South Corridor Transportation Study has moved into the project planning phase. Another project that I would like to mention is Maryland 197 from US 50 to Maryland 450. The engineering is currently underway, and the county contributed to $1 million to planning, and funding increased to $1.8 million to complete the final design. For the state transportation projects, the city views moving Maryland 197 through the design and engineering phase to right-of-way acquisition and eventually to construction. The city also views sending a letter to the state for the re-examination of Maryland 450 from Stony Brook Drive to Racetrack Road for the city's aim to creating a Bowie Main Street concept. For the county transportation projects, much of this remains the same from the year prior. For the WBNA bridge over the Patuxent, the anticipated completion date is set for September 7th and the opening date for late September. This project will finish in time of the permit deadline, which was 500 days after groundbreaking, which was June 15th, 2022. So the project will finish way before the deadline we would get here. The recommendations for the county transportation projects are similar to the year before with a few additions. Moving Mitchellville Road to design and engineering, and moving the improvement project on Racetrack Road to enter construction. Similarly, the trail projects also remain the same as they did last year. One thing to mention for the pedestrian bridge over Maryland 214, the city has been in contact with MDOT and State Highway Administration on which grants to target to fund the design and engineering and also construction costs. For our transit priorities, supporting the possible circulator route is one of our main transit goals, and work closely with WMATA and the Better Bus Network design to continue featuring Bowie's existing low-frequency routes, but also add additional links, including potential transit connections to Greenbelt and Laurel. And that's it for your 2023 transportation priorities.
Questions from council? Mayor Pro Tem?
First of all, great presentation. Really excited that you're here. I went to Morgan too, so hey. Okay, first follow-up question is on the WMATA, and it might be for you, Mr. Minor, or anyone. What I've heard in District 4 was that a lot of people don't end up engaging with the bus routes is because it takes too long to get to the final destination, and there isn't a straight route. So in your observations or your study with working with WMATA, is part of that possibly looking at how they can consolidate routes or make it quicker for the rider to get from point A to point B in a quicker time frame so that more people can be incentivized? Because I know a couple of years ago we had an issue where WMATA was saying that the bus rider numbers were dropping in Bowie, and that's why they were kind of cutting back on hours. And as I talk to more people, I'm learning that it's dropping because it takes too long to get to their final destination. And so kind of like, how are you thinking about that? Sorry, that was a lot, but I want to give you context on what I was hearing too from my constituents.
So looking at the network design that we have now with WMATA, Bowie currently doesn't have a lot of high frequency routes that's running through the city. Most of the high frequency routes run close to DC in the metropolitan area. So for right now, our job is to just maintain and coordinate the routes we have now. So when we do get additional routes, mainly hopefully to Greenbelt and Laurel, we can kind of manage those existing routes and kind of see where the new routes will come in play.
Okay, I just want to amplify Pointer Ridge for you because that's really where like in District 4, that's really where like the heavy bus routes are. Sorry, Mr. City Manager.
And Mayor Pro Tem, what we can do is talk to WMATA and ask them if they can make the routes that do come to our city more direct. And I don't think it hurts to ask. And I think the fact that we're the city of Bowie, they should consider it. And that's one thing that we can get Red One to do here. He's not a Tuskegee man, but he's close, though. That's an inside joke there, if you fine fellow, though.
Yes, I'd just like to add one thing. Ridwan had mentioned the Better Bus Network, and that is a process that WMATA is going through right now. They had done a community survey throughout the metropolitan area. One of their goals is to try to improve the efficiency of the bus routes to make the waiting times less between buses, and I think we'll benefit from that process. They're about 2/3 of the way through their planning process, but this last phase, or the next year or so, will be them actually producing options for people to consider. And so once that information comes out, we may want to arrange a briefing with them to you and try to get additional feedback to them, because that's when they're going to make the actual decisions. So we're right on the verge of really trying to make those changes.
No, I do want to. It's sort of related to that, and it's something I think I brought up last time. We talked about that, and talking about with Ramada, and they talked about addressing it. But one of the problems we have too with people using the bus service is that many times they're standing outside or standing near the street itself. We're talking about people with children and other things because we have no bus shelters there. Now, when we talked to them before, they said they were looking at that. But I'd like to make sure that we press that issue, because I think we can get greater ridership and other things if people aren't just standing almost in the street or standing somewhere, if it rains or somewhere, they have no shelter until the bus comes. So I think we need to continue to push for that, because I think that's very important. And I think it's a safety issue as well.
Right, that is another purpose of the Better Bus Initiative.
Exactly.
Specifically, they're going to try to improve those conditions that you mentioned.
Yeah, and I will mention that if we can, there are some new things that we've seen where they're doing almost like livable bus shelters. You know, where they're building them now, where they blend with the community, where they're eco-friendly and other things. So if we can push them in that way too, that'd be greatly appreciated. Okay? Thank you. I think Madam Mayor Pro Tem
I
and
just
then
have,
Jack.
okay, I just have one more question.
I recognize all of them.
In terms of what you just presented here, I'm just going to ask in layman's terms. There are a lot of different numbers here and a lot of different street names. In terms of 301, as it relates to where South Lake is, Amber Ridge, that proximity, what type of improvements do you expect us to see based off of what you have compiled in this list, as it relates to that particular area and the backup that our constituents are facing right there at that point?
Well, I can answer that question, Council
Okay.
Member. There is an existing county capital improvement project line item for Route 301, and what it is it's a allocation of $4.13 million annually in each of the 6 years of the program, and that's to make improvements to 301 south of 214. So this is something that the county has regularly funded and supported in their capital program, but what they also do is they use that as leverage to work with developers to get developer contributions to match some of those funding or those funds. And for example, you have development approvals that require improvements to be made. For example, at the South Lake development, they're improving a whole third lane of route. They're adding a third lane to US 301 southbound. They're signalizing the intersection at their new crossover entrance at the Wawa. So there is this ongoing effort, I think, by the county to sort of pick up the slack, because the state is not actually funding any improvements on 301 at this time. They have a long-range plan, but it's really local contributions by developers and through the county CIP.
Is that a posture that you've seen that the state has consistently taken, or do you think that that's something that's unique to the city of Bowie?
No, I think it's the entire corridor that they've
Okay.
had their work on hold for years.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Councilman Hawkins.
Simple question. Do we know, with regards to our bus ridership, where are Bowie residents that are catching the bus? Do we know where they're going? Are they going to a metro station? Are they going to a grocery store to pick up groceries? Are they going into DC to a job? Do we have any data on that or any understanding?
I don't have anything specific that I can refer to. I know the Census Bureau every year puts out the American Community Survey. It reports that on average 10% of our residents commute by bus to work. So that gives you a pretty good sense. I mean, I don't know the destinations, but at least they're choosing to take the bus to work. We could pursue trying to find out better details to your question, but I just don't think we have the information tonight.
I think it would be interesting to know if we could figure out, are there people taking the bus in the city and remaining in the city, in their commute?
We'll report back to you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Council members? I think we go now to Councilmember Steph.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few things. Joe, how long has 197 been a transportation priority for the city? Sometime between Moses leaving Egypt and arriving in the promised land, right? Okay. So I got a bucket here labeled expectation setting, and it's full of wet blankets, and I want to pull them out one at a time. So we were in this room not long ago, and Congressman Steny Hoyer did what politicians rarely do, and he was very honest and upfront about certain transportation funding realities. This was 4 years ago. It's gotten worse since then. Federal gas tax, which funds transportation improvements, is not going up. The state tax, gas tax has gone up a little bit, but we got a governor who's talking a big game about decoupling it from inflation, or cost of living adjustments. We just had a meeting 2 weeks ago where our government relations team assured us that the state transportation fund was going to continue to dry up at a time when there's more demand than ever on it. Federal funds are slowly working their way through the system, but the short version is everywhere we've gone, people have told us there's not more money, there's going to be less. And so I guess one of my concerns going forward is we've got this transportation priority letter that, for the most part, hasn't changed much at all in years. It's a little bit of a Sisyphean exercise. It'd be kind of comedic in a different way, right? So one thing I would suggest to my colleagues is in future years, maybe we want to sit down and just have some real talk with our lawmakers about whether it's worth wasting so much paper on projects like 197, which everyone I talk to who seems to be a decision maker at the state level says is probably never going to get expanded. I mean, they've spent a fortune studying it and redesigning it for years, and now we're at the point where traffic engineers are like, hey, modern design principles suggest if we widen this road, it's only going to save you traffic for about 6 months. Usage is going to increase, and you're just going to be sitting in 2 lanes of traffic instead of 1, right? So that's just something my colleagues and I might want to consider, that this exercise, some of it is a little bit pro forma, right? It might be more helpful if we have a shorter letter with more attainable goals in the future. Speaking of which, Maryland National Capital Park and Planning is doing wonderful work on Sandy Hill Spring Park, just north of the city. They have created sidewalk extensions that run the length of the park. If you're familiar with that park, there's nothing around it. There's like 3 homes. So the sidewalk goes north, ends in the woods, goes south, ends in the woods. So if you're a squirrel, it's great access to the park. If you're a human, not such great access to the park. I would love if we could include in our letter a request that connects to previous requests we've made to the county, which is that we have sidewalks that currently run in front of the Huntington Community Center. It'd be wonderful if we could get that sidewalk, which currently terminates at 7th Street, to go up, eventually connecting to the park at Sandy Spring, which should be open sometime in the spring. The sidewalk will take a lot longer than that, I'm sure, but that's kind of an obvious, easy connection. The other benefit is we've been getting complaints from residents for years that you got school kids who are walking that northern stretch of Chestnut Road, with basically 6 inches of median next to speeding cars. So that's one thing. Another thing, I did receive feedback about Mitchellville Road south of Mount Oak. I know that that's on the list, just want to reemphasize that for the resident who brought that to my attention. The other thing is if we could request State Highway to do an updated study of 564/11th Street running from Cohen Avenue west of Ascension Church to the Huntington Neighborhood Park south. Ideally, we would look at traffic calming measures such as chicanes or other kind of more attainable traffic calming to help make that corridor a little bit slower and feel a little bit more like a main street. That would be my only other request. I do have a question this is not going to go in the transportation letter, but several residents have pointed out to me over the years that when you drive around and you see the public right-of-way tree landscaping, that there's like this volcano of mulch that people place around the trees, and that this is a common landscaping practice, but that it's actually really counterproductive, and that apparently it kills the trees, it hurts the roots, it makes it more likely the tree's going to fall in the long term. I don't know which contractors the state work with, but if the planning department or someone in the sustainability division could just update us with information on why landscapers are doing this and who we need to call, whether this is a policy change or just talking to someone at State Highway and figuring out why this is such a common practice, it'd just be helpful on behalf of some of our eco-conscious residents. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Mayor Pro Tem?
The one thing that I'll add, I'll turn to staff to confirm, but you might not be able to confirm tonight because I think Maddie's working on this. Mitchellville Road and Mount Oak, that was already approved, if I'm not mistaken, in the county's budget and their transportation priorities, as well as the repaving of Mitchellville Road, which was supposed to have begun work probably about 2 weeks ago, or maybe they already did begin. So if I'm not mistaken, that's already in motion, but I'll turn, okay, that's what I thought. Okay, that's already in motion. That's what I thought. All right, thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Minor.
Right, and if I could just comment on that, council member, that the city council's policy has always been to try to get the county to reconstruct the entire roadway from Mount Oak down to Route 301, making it a complete street design with sidewalks on both sides and bicycle accessibility, fixing the drainage, so it's a major project, but the timing of their resurfacing kind of gives you an idea of, it was urgently needed anyway because of the potholes, but once they're going to finish that project, I don't see them coming back anytime soon.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Gardner, did you have something? Or were you next? All right, Councilman Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to go back to the conversation about WMATA and the buses. We had a resident just reach out to us. We just want to emphasize that there's some concerns about the B22 route, and if it's possible, when we're talking with WMATA, can we raise that? That's a route that I've used before when I was younger, and I just think that we need, folks should have accessible, safe transportation, and we've been hearing some concerns about that route. So, yeah, appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Okay, just very briefly, Mr. Mayor. I understand Ms. Scott that's here this evening, she had mentioned, she spoke to us about the traffic and things of going around the city and potential and definitely getting worse. She brought up a good issue with me as far as many of our bus stops happen to be, a pretty much of a distance out. So maybe if we could work with WMATA to maybe try and find a way to lessening some of the walking or the distance between the stops so that we can, we may see some rider engagement increase there as well. Ms. Scott mentioned to me that she relies on this daily. She takes her daughters to, yes. Yeah, I know. Okay. Pardon me. Thank you, Ms. Scott. And so there's something, we're going to continue this dialogue and make sure that we get this to WMATA. I know that this is something that Councilmember Hawkins and I have been talking about regularly. He is a truly advocate for public transportation because he speaks for a number of residents that rely on it going into the district. And it's something that we do need to lean on to and pulling some of these cars off the highway and some of off of our roads so we can reduce some of this speeding and other things that are going on. I know with the cars being on the road, I've oftentimes seen a number of people just toss trash out of the cars. I mean, a number of things, with more cars, more trash, more crime, number of things that, that are affected by just having more cars on the road. So if we can reduce that by increasing our public transportation and strengthening our relationship with WMATA and as the mayor and Councilmember Esteve and Mayor Pro Tem and Devamadu mentioned, just those relationships in particular will help us provide our residents with a smoother commute as they commute around the metropolitan area as a whole. But we would want to definitely work with, as the city manager said, with Ramada, understanding that we are Bowie and that we do have a certain standard that we have to obtain and maintain here in Bowie. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to just comment on that as well, and that is understand, not only will it be advantageous to our citizens as far as transportation goes, it'll also be advantageous to our environment.
Yes. Yes.
You know, so we need to understand that it has more impacts than we see. And when we look at the current environment and what's going on with the severity of storms and all,
Yeah.
everything we can do will help. So thank you on that. Any other comments? Would you like to comment? All right. Well, I'd like to say thank you. Oh, Joe Minor.
I did have one thing I wanted to point out and ask for council's support with, and that is Mr. Coker mentioned the Maryland 214 pedestrian overpass project. It's a project that we would like to move forward and try to apply for grants with, and we had a feasibility study done in 2021 and actually produced a recommendation for a bridge in the Pennsbury Drive area, which would connect to Hall Road and then over into the South Lake development. What I'd like to suggest is that we provide a briefing to council about that project, maybe in September or early October. We're looking to make a grant application in the end of September. We want to make sure that council's on board with that. And the other thing is we'd like to try to elicit the support of our elected officials, higher up, state and county officials, to get behind this project. It also is going to complete a section of the city's trails master plan as well as the county's master plan of trails. So it really would serve multiple purposes, and we believe that a briefing would be really advantageous for council to bring you up to speed. We can invite the elected officials to attend that briefing and try to get the ball rolling in terms of soliciting their support, because anytime you go in for a federal grant, as much of the local elected officials' support that you can show, I think is really would help with our chances of getting the grant approved. So if council would concur, I'd like to bring that subject back to you on an agenda and give you a specific briefing on the project.
Yes, I think we should place that on the agenda. In future, city manager, you'll be able to get that on for us. Appreciate it. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Go ahead.
Joe, when you reference pedestrian bridge, are you referring to the type of pedestrian bridge that we currently have between that's right here on 197? So you're proposing putting in a pedestrian bridge on 214?
Yes, and it has been council's policy over the years to do that. There's been discussion of different locations of it. At one time, when there was no signal at Devonwood in front of the Collington station, even before the traffic signal was there was talk of putting a bridge crossing there. The old A44 right-of-way, which was even further to the west around Grovehurst, that was another opportunity. So for years, the council policy was to try to construct a bridge there to get people from both, from either side of the road across.
And with the new development over at South Lake, you see more of a potential of where there would be more pedestrian.
Right, you have
more
the
usage.
synergy of the county's trail network, which will go all the way to Upper Marlboro, link up to the Liberty Sports Park, and then bring it up into the city where we have our primary Bowie byway, which is recommended in our trails plan. So with this consultant that did the feasibility study, looked at a number of different locations, and they recommended the one near Pennsbury Drive and Hall Road. So that's what we'd like to share with you, the results of that study. The cost of the bridge is not insignificant. The estimate is around $3.5 million to do the entire
How much this
project.
one was.
So we'd like your support, so
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hearing no further comments at this time, I'd like to say thank you again for that briefing.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, and the dialogue.
And we'll provide the letter to council through the package. We'll include some of the comments that you've made tonight and hopefully
Excellent.
get your endorsement of that. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you, Joe. Thank you. All right, at this time, we will be moving on to item B, which is the adoption of Resolution R 4823, approving the draft fiscal year 2025 through 28 HUD, fiscal year 2023 to 2027, Consolidated Plan, and fiscal year 2024 HUD fiscal year 2023 Annual Action Plan for the Community Development Block Grant Program. All right. If you would go, Mr. Bucks.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jesse Buggs, Director of the Grants Office. Over the last 9 months, we have developed the city's Housing and Community Development Plan as required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. It has included surveys of over 10,000 residents in the city, a number of businesses. Through our consultant, we have interviewed about 15 county and state agencies who provide all kinds of support to the city, both for homelessness as well as other housing services and activities. And as a result of the study that we've done, Council has approved on 3 other occasions so far during that 9-month period our progress up to this point. So what we provided for you in the document is a collaboration, a compendium of everything we've done for 9 months, which explains the survey of all the residents, explains the analysis of the survey data, explains the information we received in the past 5 years. A number of things have changed in terms of the demographics of the city, as well as the needs of different populations in the city, including the seniors, as well as all of the homeless people I deal with every day. So there are a number of activities that we look at, and what we propose are 3 projects that we're currently doing. One is a housing rehab program. The other is mandated by HUD, which is a fair housing training program that we do. And we also open that up to all the other municipalities in the county. And then we also continue our workforce training program, which is primarily geared in conjunction with Bowie Youth and Family Services to the kids over here at Bowie High School, so that we expose them to STEM opportunities and teach them some of the concepts of ideation as it relates to innovation and technology and entrepreneurship. So we take them to the University of Maryland, to their labs, Prince George's Community College, and other places. So those are the projects we propose to tell HUD we want to do over the next few years. The total is approximately $1 million for the 5 years. So with that, what we'd like to do is present that document to HUD for their approval after we receive your approval. Thank you.
At this time, any questions from council? Hearing none, I'd like to open the public hearing. Do we have anyone speaking?
No, Mayor, we have no one signed up this evening and no comments were received.
Okay, I will declare the public hearing closed. At this time, I will entertain a motion to accept the,
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to accept R-48-23.
it's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye. Aye. Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. We will now go to the City Council legislative priorities. And by the way, Mr. Bucks, thank you for very much, because I know this is quite comprehensive, and it takes a lot of work to get this done.
Yes, it does.
So to the entire staff and to you, thank you.
Oh, good job, Jesse. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, he's going to be responsible now.
Okay, we will now move on to City Council legislative priorities. What I'd like to do is, as I look at this, I know we had some conflict the last time when we had the meeting or the session to discuss what the priorities were. Unfortunately, we scheduled it the same night as the National Night Out. So many council members, well, several, weren't able to actually participate or didn't join in until later. What I would like to look at this time is giving council members an opportunity to look at what we're talking about as priorities and actually give some more feedback on what those priorities will be. Take a look at these and not actually vote on anything this evening for this, and actually just give ourselves a chance to discuss further some additional items that we can put in there, if council is agreeable with that.
Yes, sir. Y'all, can people not read their calendars? Like, we scheduled that meeting that night. The National Night Out had been planned for a long time. So when we agreed to that meeting, were people unable to read their calendars?
Well, I would think that the question is, I would not try to insult the council by saying they can't read their calendars. But I understand your point. For those who voted for it on that night, you know, unfortunately, I don't think people were looking ahead and realized that. That's
Okay.
all. And I'm simply saying, though, Councilman, that we just want to get everybody's input to make sure that we can quickly do that and put it together so that we can present that to our lobbyists. I think it was a good session. I think there were a lot of important things discussed. I think the list we have there is good, but I think it will give us a chance to add some more things and just get further input, that's all.
At that meeting, we were reminded, and then we were reminded in multiple subsequent emails, that a major challenge is making sure we get in these budget conversations as early as humanly possible, because the state is putting together their budgets now. So if we don't meet again until September to have these discussions, our lobbyists are going to miss a lot of the critical opportunities to start having conversations.
Well, I don't think that this will limit people from taking a look at it and actually providing input to each other, and that we can talk and actually provide some of that additional input to, I think the assistant city manager did a good job of helping to distill a lot of the conversation and put those. So I think we just afford each other, even if it's just another week or so. I just want to make sure, regardless of what happened with the calendar conflict, that we just provide everybody an opportunity to give their input.
All right?
All right.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go right ahead.
may I suggest that we instead follow a two-pronged attack? We did have conversations that evening. There were a fair number of people who were there. Admittedly, some did come late just because of conflicts, but nonetheless, we had an opportunity to have a discussion. And I think we had fairly good consensus at the end as to what items were on that list. If we could move ahead with those items, that would be, I think, a good starting point, and then provide another opportunity. Unfortunately, our next meeting isn't until September, but perhaps we could provide another opportunity for additional items to be added without compromising the work that's been done so far. Because I agree with Mr. Stev, which is our lobbyists are telling us they're handicapped by not having kind of marching orders. I don't think there'd be anything new that would be contradictory to what we've put together so far. Perhaps additive instead. Is that an approach that the body would consider?
Well, I hear what you're saying, council member, and I think we're somewhat on the same page. I'm just saying give the rest of the council another week to put some additional input, because I know I've gotten a couple of things that we want to add to it. And rather than just go through that, just give it a week. We don't have to wait until we come back for another. I think you're right. We could look at moving forward with some of these things and just give ourselves a week for everybody to give additional input. That's all. Because if we vote on that, I don't want this to be voted on as the end-all, be-all. And I think I'd just rather see everyone on the council get a chance to put some input over the next week.
Well, you're the mayor for a reason, so I'm going to follow your seat.
Okay. All right, so why don't we just give everyone, staff, if we could, open it up for us to be able to provide feedback to you within the next week that we can continue to do.
Send a copy of these out to everybody so they can
Yes.
take a look at it and review it. One thing we could do if a week or so down the road, we could, you all could do a roll call confirmation of the list as it was tallied by Mr. Mears to, if you want to get, that's up to the chairman, or if you want to get up to avoid the September issue. That's one way to affirm the list via roll call by 4 people saying, yeah, I concur with whatever Mr. Mears has on, say, for example, August the 25th. Whatever date you all set. I don't want to set that because I don't want to be on the council, but whatever date you
I
all
would like
set.
it to set it for.
That's too hard
next,
for me, but.
Next Monday is like the 21st.
Yes.
Why don't we just set that 1 week? Give everybody a chance, get that on the 21st, and we could do that.
Well, at that point, Mr. Mears will consolidate it, give you a call, and then you can give us directions on the roll call or not.
Okay. Thank you. And by the way, I agree with my fellow council members for the effort that was put in, and that these priorities are good priorities. And I think they're going to stay there. I just want to make sure we do it as a whole. All right. Thank you. At this time, we've come to the end of our agenda item, but I would like to ask that everybody take a moment of silence for all the victims in Maui, for the lives lost, for the island itself, for all the families and everyone. So if we could, please take a moment. Hey, thank you so very much. At this time, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, closed session. Yep.
Yes.
Sorry.
I'm pointing at you.
That up right there. Sorry about that. Forgot about closed session tonight. All righty, there we go. 1 second. Get the language up. Do you have that?
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Could have
too late. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to move to adjourn and move to closed session under the statutory authority of the Maryland State Annotated Code General Provision Article subsection 3-305B1 to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, and any other personal matter that affects one or more specific individuals. Subsection 3-305B3 to consider the acquisition of real property for a public purpose and matters directly related thereto.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same favor. Motion carries. Thank you also very much for being here this evening with the weather, and appreciate all you do. Staff, as always, thank you so very much for all you do. In here? Oh, 181 downstairs? Okay, we're gonna move. I want you to know that.